Creeps! It is Cameron again, and welcome back to my channel where I talk about books, movies, writing, and all things spooky. And on this episode of Library Macabre, I have a long overdue July book haul. So, I have decided that I want to start doing monthly book hauls again. And I actually decided this back in July and didn't have a chance to film my July book haul. So you know what? I'm gonna do it now. Better late than never, right? So what I have here, first of all, are all the books that I received for review in the month of July. So here we have the first book in the Fright Watch series. This is called The Stitchers. It is by Lauren Lawrence, and I am currently halfway through this book, and I am loving it. This is so far one of my favorite books that I have read in 2020. I am loving this book. It is a middle grade horror novel about two kids who live in this small town, and in their neighborhood, specifically the street in which they live on, there are a lot of old people, but these aren't just normal old people. They're very, very strange, and they seem a lot younger than they should be. In fact, it seems like they're getting younger and younger by the day. So our two main characters are trying to figure out what the heck is going on with the oldies. And I'm just loving everything about this book. It totally reminds me of Erie, Indiana. It's giving me all of those nostalgic feelings of being a kid, and it's super spooky and just fun, and I'm loving it. So by the time this video goes up, I will definitely be done with this book, and I will have a review up soon, even though I kind of just reviewed it. But yeah, I'll have a lot more to say about it when the time comes. Another book that I got for review in July is Kill River 3 by Cameron Rubik. This is one of my most anticipated books of the year, and I already read it. So you'll be seeing a review very, very soon. I'm not going to say what I thought. You'll have to come back for the review here in the next couple of weeks. Here's another book that I received for review. This is the first book in the Twisted Books to Leave You Shook series. This one is called Frightfilter by C.S. James. I just thought this looked like a really cute middle grade horror series, much in vein of Goosebumps, obviously. Very short, so I can squeeze this in soon. I also received a copy of Jagged Edges and Moving Parts by Pete Messling. This is a short story collection featuring stories all by Pete Messling. Another very short book. It's under 200 pages, so I'm going to be squeezing this in when I start reading all of my review books that are under 200 pages. I'd like to do a big binge read of all of those shorter books that I've received for review in the coming months, so this will be part of that. So those are all the books that I received from authors for review, so thank you so much to all of those authors. I'm very much looking forward to reading each and every one of those. I also got the latest Goosebumps Slappy World book. This one is book number 11, They Call Me the Night Howler. And I saw a tweet from R.L. Stine saying that he thinks this is one of his best books in a long time. I've read quite a few of his newer Goosebump books, and they leave a lot to be desired. So if this is one of his best in a long time, then blessed be, because we need a good Goosebump book. I also made another trip back to Roundabout Books, which is in Troy, Ohio. I did a whole video about that a couple of months ago. I'll link that up there. But I went back and picked up even more horror paperbacks, and this isn't even all of it. I got some more over there. Published by Leisure in 2003 is Laughing Man by Tm Wright. This cover looks so creepy. It kind of reminds me of the Smiling Man short horror film on YouTube. I don't know if any of you guys have seen that. Definitely go look it up because it's very creepy. But that cover just kind of reminds me of that. I'm not going to go into the synopsis of each and every one of these books because I don't want this video to be 2 hours long. I also picked up The Haunt by J.N. Williamson. This was published by Leisure in 1999, so it's one of Jane Williamson's later books. Here are a couple of books by Simon Clark. These were also published by Leisure. The first one is This Rage of Echoes. And this one is called In This Skin. And if any of you guys have read any of these books, let me know what you thought down below in the graveyard. Picked up a book by Douglas Clegg, who I've been wanting to read for a long time. I've heard a lot of great things about his work. This one is called Naomi. I also found a couple of books by Melanie Tim. The first one I have here is called The Tides. This was published by Leisure, and this is one of the books that was part of the Dell Abyss line in the 90s. This is Prodigal. I've heard so many good things about this one. I believe it won the Bram Stoker, or maybe it tied with another book. Published by Popular Library in 1988, we have Limbo. This is by Jan Lara. Another really cool cover. This next one was published in 1987 by Pocket Books, though it was originally published in 1986, probably in hardcover. This is the first printing of the paperback. This is Finishing Touches. The author is Thomas Tessier, or is it Tessier? I can't remember how to pronounce that. It's one of those. Published in 1981 by Jove is A Stranger's Eyes. This is written by Betty Weiser. Very spooky cover on that book. Published in 1980 by Leisure, we have Bishop's Landing. This one is by Richard Forsyth. I've heard a lot about this one. I like the bloody hatchet stuck in the door. I was blown away to find this. I don't know how I missed it the first time that I went to a Roundabout Books, but I'm very glad that I was able to pick it up. This is Lizzie Borden by Elizabeth Engstrom. Elizabeth Engstrom is a very, very popular author, especially now after the success of Paperbacks from Hell. I've not read any of her books yet, but I've been trying to pick them up as I find them for cheap, because her books are very rarely cheap. They go for a pretty penny online. Next up is Mind War by Gene Snyder. This was published by Playboy in the 80s. Very scanners looking book. Next is a book published by Tor in 1988, and I saw the cover for this at the store and thought maybe it was a fantasy book, but it is actually labeled as horror on the spine. That is Mrs. Denning and the Mythical Beast. This is by Faith Sullivan. I've never heard of the book before. The fact that it looked so much like fantasy but was labeled as horror just intrigued me, so I'm kind of curious to see how this is horror. I also finally found a copy of Razer's Song. This is a book that I have been searching for a very long time because I saw the cover online, thought it looked super creepy. Yeah, I've been looking for it ever since. Finally found one for dirt cheap, so I'm glad to add this to my collection. I think this is about a serial killer. I can't say exactly what it's about though. I kind of just bought it based off of the cover alone. And please, for the love of God, don't comment down below saying that I shouldn't judge a book by its cover, because I did. And look, we're still here, and you're gonna be okay. Yeah, there's Razer's Song. The rest of the books that I got are all 90s YA horror books, which is one of my favorite things to read. So we have a book in the Horror High series. This one is called Hard Rock. I have been having such a hard time finding these books. I was able to find this one and two others at Roundabout Books. Otherwise, I've never seen these books on sale anywhere before. So if you ever come across any of these and you want to sell them to me, I will buy them off of you. I also found a book in the Zodiac series. This one is called Into the Light. I've never read any of these either, but they look cool. Next, I found a book in the Ghost World series. I believe this is the final book in that series. It's called Final Frenzy. Looks super 90s. Here are all three books in the Dark Moon Legacy series by Cynthia Baer. The first one is called The Curse. The second one is called The Seduction. And the third and final book is called The Rebellion. These kind of look like maybe the Vampire Diaries, but with werewolves. Next, I found three books in the Vampire Twins trilogy. So here's book 2, which is called Bloodlust. Book 3, which is called Blood Choice. And book 4 in the trilogy, which is called Blood Reunion. I know it's kind of confusing that there are 4 books in a trilogy, but I think what happened is that there were 3 books originally, and then they came back with the reunion book. So I have books 2, 3, and 4 but I'm still missing the first book, so I need to try to track that down. And then the last book that I found at Roundabout Books is another one of these Fun Facts horror books. This is book number 10. It's called The Wood. Fun Facts was like this weird thing in the 90s that I never knew about as a kid. But if I had known about it, I definitely would have been all over it. So there were a bunch of fun fact files books where they were just like these binders full of facts about different things. And they actually did a horror series. So I've been able to find quite a few of these books at this bookstore. This was just another one that I must have missed the first time that I went. But I heard that there was a horror file, and I have been looking for it. Wasn't really able to find it anywhere, but lo and behold, I got an email or a private message either on Twitter or Instagram, Facebook, somewhere from a viewer of Library Macabre. And she was very kind, and she was like, hey, I have a copy of the horror file and I'd love to send it to you. So she sent it to me all the way from the UK. Listen, I can't find your message from before. I have been looking through hundreds of messages trying to find you so I could thank you personally for this, but I don't know what happened to the message, and I can't remember who you are. So if you could please reach out to me again and just let me know, hey, that was me that sent you this. I would love to thank you personally, because this is so cool, and it was so nice of you to send this all the way from the UK. But just look at this thing. It is so cool. It's got like all kinds of horror facts. Look, it's even got stickers, and the stickers are all intact, which is awesome. Yeah, I just love this thing. A really cool little oddity to have, and I'm glad that I can add it to my collection of fun fact horror books. So whoever you are that sent this, thank you. Please reach out to me so I can thank you personally. And lastly, I've made a couple of trips to Half Price Books recently, just because, you know, everything's starting to open back up, and I feel a little more comfortable masking up and going book shopping, so I've been kind of getting that out of my system recently. The first one I have here was actually on clearance at Half Price Books. It's like $2. It is a first edition, first printing of one of the Dana Girls mysteries, which was kind of a cash grab of sorts off of the Nancy Drew series by Carolyn Keene. They even put Carolyn Keene's name as being the author of the books, even though Carolyn Keene doesn't exist. This is book number 29 in the series. It is called The Secret of the Minstrel's Guitar. I've never read any of these books. I've only ever read, you know, Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys and a little bit of Trixie Belden. But I am curious to check these out eventually. I also found a book in the Terror Academy series, which is a 90s YA horror series that's been very rare. It's very hard to find any of these. But I ran across this one at Half Price Books. I was so happy because this is one of my favorite covers from the series. I've been looking for it for a while. So there's 16 Candles. I also found a first edition, first printing of the first book in the Final Friends trilogy by Christopher Pike. This one's called The Party. Next are a couple of books from the Shivers series by M.D. Spencer. So we have book number 9, which is called The Mystic's Spell, and book 10, which is called The Curse of the New Kid. I've read The Curse of the New Kid. This book was messed up. There's quite a lot of dark, creepy, gory, disturbing imagery in this book that had no business being in a book aimed at such a young audience. But it did, and it messed me up when I was a kid. I couldn't believe some of the things that I was reading about. So yeah, there's Curse of the New Kid. I did have a copy of this before, but it had a big tear in the cover, so I was able to find a really nice copy of that one. I also found book number 26 in the Ghosts of Fear Street series, which is a middle grade version of R.L. Stine's Fear Street, which was primarily aimed at teenagers. This one is called Go to Your Tomb Right Now. This is actually a pretty rare book in the series. All of the later books are pretty hard to find. This next one is a book in the Wacky Facts Lunch Bunch series by Paul Zindel. This one's called Fright Party. I've never heard of this series, but I have read a lot of books by Paul Zindel. He actually wrote a lot of middle grade horror books that were super gory. Like, I would check those out from the library and read them as a kid and felt like I was getting away with something, like I shouldn't have been reading them. So I saw this and I was curious to check it out. I doubt this is going to be bloody or gory or anything. It just looked like a little fun, cozy middle grade Halloween book. So yeah, there's that one. I also found one of the later Hardy Boys books. This is book number 108. It is called Fear on Wheels. I also saw these at Half Price Books, and I hadn't heard of them before, so I decided to just grab them and check them out sometime. They're newer books. It's actually a new series called the Spine Shivers series. This is by J.R. Dark. This first one is called Tech Fury, and this one is called The Grin in the Dark. Reading spooky books like these just bring me back to my childhood, which is why I continue to buy them. I also found another vintage horror paperback. This is from 1995. It's called These Fallen Angels by Wendy Howley. And I have another one of her books, which is called This Dark Paradise. It's actually the first book to this series. This is the second book. I also found a first printing of The Snowman by R.L. Stine. It's one of the books in the Point Horror series. Next is Bruce Carville's Chamber of Horrors, book number 1, Amulet of Doom. Now this is actually a reprint from either the Dark Forces series or the Twilight When Darkness Begins series. Both of those series are from the 80s, and again, super rare, very hard to find those books. I had no idea that any of those books were reprinted, but I guess Bruce Carville got the rights back for those and republished them under a different series name in the 90s. So this is a reprint of one of those. I also found a few Charmed books at Half Price Books. So we have The Crimson Spell, Demon Doppelganger, and Shadow of the Sphinx. And here are some more books that I found at Half Price Books. So we have a V.C. Andrews. This one is called Shooting Stars. It binds up the serialized Shooting Stars series all into one book. So I was able to get rid of my individual paperbacks and just replace them with this nice big paperback. We also have another Point Horror book that I'd never even heard of before. This is book 1 in the Secret Diaries series by Janice Harnell. Yeah, it's got that iconic Point Horror blood splatter on the spine. Never heard of this one, but I had to pick it up because it's Point Horror. I also found this book right here called The Weirdo, which is by Theodore Taylor. He is the author of the iconic book The K, which I remember reading in elementary school as part of a project. I didn't really like that book very much, but this one sounds a lot more up my alley. It is about this guy right here who lives in the swamp, and apparently there are a bunch of bodies piling up, and he is being blamed for killing these people, but then the main character of the book teams up with him to try to find the real killer. So it sounds very different and interesting, and I'm very curious to read this one. I also found several Nancy Drew books. I love Nancy Drew. One of my favorite things to do on a chilly, rainy day is to curl up with a blanket and a cup of tea and to crack into a Nancy Drew mystery, because these things are just so cozy and they never fail to keep me entertained. So the first one we have here is book number 122 in the series. This is called The Message in the Haunted Mansion. I actually played the computer game of this back when I was a kid. I did not know there was a book, so happy to have this. Next is book number 140. It is called The Door-to-Door Deception. Book 144 in the Nancy Drew series. This is the email mystery. Book 146, The Ghost of the Lantern Lady. Very excited to read that one. And then we have book 160, which is called The Clue on the Crystal Dove. I also picked up one of the books in the Nancy Drew Files series. This was actually from the 90s. It was aimed at young adults. This one is book number 99. It is called The Cheating Heart. These ones definitely focused more on the romance aspect, but they still had some good mysteries throughout. Very similar to Nancy Drew, I found a first edition copy of Trixie Belden, The Mystery of the Vanishing Victim. This is book number 33 in the series. This is an Apple paperback published in 1985. Aliens in the Family by Margaret May. I've never heard of this one, but I saw it and thought it looked too retro. I couldn't pass it up. Another 90s YA horror book. This is called Twin Sisters by Janice Harrell, who actually is the author of that Secret Diaries book, which is a Point Horror book. So there's two books by the same author. And then the last book I have for this haul is Hawaii Chillers. This is the fourth book in that series. It's called Night of the Living Tiki. Never heard of this. I saw this on the shelf and I'm like, what? What the heck? So I had to pick it up. My guess is that this is an old self-published series that was probably popular in Hawaii. Somehow it ended up in half-price books here in Ohio, but now I want to find all of the other books. So there you go. That is my July book haul. Those certainly aren't all of the books that I got in July. I also got the Nightworms package, which I will link up here. I already did an entire unboxing on that, so I didn't worry about featuring those books in this book haul. I also received a package from Bloodshot Books. Again, post that one right up there if you want to go and take a look. But otherwise, that's everything that I got in July. I really hope you guys enjoyed watching this long video. Thank you for sticking around. Hey, Tony, what do you think of all of the books that I got? Alright, well, he thinks I have too many, but everybody's entitled to their opinion. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Later, creeps.